If you live anywhere in the River Valley, you've probably opened a utility bill recently and just stared at it. That feeling of sticker shock is real, and it's happening all across our communities. And it leaves a lot of us asking the exact same question.
So let's get right to it. Whether you're in Alma, Fort Smith, or Van Buren, this isn't just you. Your rates are going up. And no, it's not a coincidence. This is all part of a huge coordinated shift that's happening right now. And the reason for it? Well, it actually starts at the state level. You see, your local city council didn't just wake up one day and decide to hike your rates for fun. Their hands are pretty much tied by a new rulebook from the state of Arkansas, a rulebook that is completely changing the math on how our water and sewer systems have to be paid for. And at the very heart of all this are two key pieces of legislation. First, there's Act 605, which passed back in 2021 and targets water systems. And now its new partner, Act 925, is doing the exact same thing for sewer systems. Together, these two laws have basically rewritten the financial playbook for every single town and city in the state. Okay, so the biggest change from Act 605 is this idea called full cost pricing. For decades, a lot of towns kept water rates artificially low. I mean, it felt good in the short term, right? But it meant there was never any money set aside for long-term repairs. The state has now officially banned that practice. Utilities have to operate like a business, charging enough to cover today's bills and save up for tomorrow's big fixes. No more kicking the can down the road. So how does the state actually make sure cities are doing this? They use a tool called the debt service coverage ratio. Now, that sounds super technical, but the idea is actually really simple. For every single dollar the utility owes on its debt, it has to prove it's bringing in at least $1.10. It's like a mandatory financial safety net. If a city's revenue drops below that line, the law legally requires them to raise rates to get back on solid ground. And now, Act 925 is applying these exact same principles to our sewer systems, which, let's be honest, are often way more expensive to maintain. The big takeaway here? No more robbing the water fund to patch up a sewer line. Each utility, water and sewer, has to stand on its own 2 feet financially. This is why you're seeing all these changes happen right now. It's not a drill. The state has set a hard deadline of July 1st, 2026. All the bigger cities have to prove they are following these new rules. They've got to get their rate studies done and make the necessary changes before that date, or they're going to face some pretty serious penalties. And when I say serious, I mean it. A city can be officially labeled as being in a fiscal distress. This means the state could start withholding money that we all rely on. You know, the funds used for paving roads or paying for the police department. Worst case scenario, the state could actually take over the local utility entirely. So for city leaders, raising rates isn't really a choice. It's what they have to do to keep local control. Okay, so that's the why. Now let's look at the how. Let's check out how 3 different cities, right here in our area, are tackling this exact same problem. Because even though everyone is playing by the same new rules, their game plans look a little different based on their own unique challenges. This slide gives us a really great snapshot. First, you've got Alma. They got hit with a huge spike in the cost of chemicals, which is forcing a rate hike, but they're also using that hike to finally fund a new facility to fix their long-standing brown water problems. Then there's Van Buren. They're taking a more gradual approach, trying to avoid that sticker shock with smaller, predictable annual increases tied to inflation. And then you've got Fort Smith. They're dealing with a massive federal order that requires steady, long-term rate hikes just to manage a full-blown crisis. And that situation in Fort Smith, it's so significant that it really serves as a powerful case study for the entire state. It is a very sobering look at what happens when these big infrastructure problems are ignored for way too long. The city is working under something called a consent decree. What is that? Well, it's a legally binding order from the federal government. We're talking the EPA and the Department of Justice, demanding that Fort Smith fix its sewer system, a system that for decades was leaking raw sewage into local waterways, which is a major violation of the Clean Water Act. This timeline just shows you how a problem that's put off can absolutely explode. Back in 2015, the first repair estimate was a massive, but maybe manageable, $255 million. The city immediately had to raise sewer rates by a staggering 167% just to start the work. But as engineers actually got into the pipes, they found way more damage than anyone knew about. By 2024, the cost had ballooned, and that original 2027 deadline, that became impossible. The new estimated price tag to get all this federally mandated work done, is now over $800 million. Let that sink in. That's more than triple the original estimate. It is a jaw-dropping figure that just shows you the exponential cost of delaying maintenance. And a bill that big can't be paid through higher rates alone. It creates these ripple effects across the entire community. To help pay for it, Fort Smith had to divert a huge chunk of sales tax money that was supposed to be for paving streets. So the real cost of waiting isn't just in your sewer bill, it's also in the bumpier ride you have driving around town.
As one regional official put it so perfectly, this whole thing is about maintenance versus prices. And that's really the core lesson here, from both the new state laws and the cautionary tale of Fort Smith. Paying a little now for an oil change is an inconvenience. Paying for a whole new engine after it blows up, that's a catastrophe.
So the next time you look at that higher utility bill, it's worth maybe reframing the question. It's not just about what it costs today. It's about what you're paying to prevent tomorrow. Is that extra money a down payment on a reliable future? Or is it a sign that the bill for decades of neglect has finally come due?